Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting.
Okay.
The idea that our internal dialogue
Right.
can actually shape the reality that we experience.
Absolutely.
So kind of a mind-blowing concept to start off with.
Yeah.
But we're going to be looking at some excerpts from John's work
Mm-hmm.
on shamanic principles and techniques
Mm-hmm.
to kind of unpack this a little bit.
Awesome.
So are you ready to have your mind blown?
I'm always ready to have my mind blown.
Okay, great. Me too.
Yeah. No.
So before we kind of dive into that a little bit,
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to give our listeners just a quick recap
Yeah.
on what shamanism is all about.
Sure.
Some people listening may be familiar,
Uh-huh.
some people maybe not so much.
Right.
For those of us who haven't exactly been hanging out in sweat lodges,
Yeah.
what are the key principles here?
Well, shamanism is essentially an ancient spiritual practice.
Okay.
And it's really found in cultures all over the world. So it's not something that's, specific to one particular place.
Okay.
And what it really emphasizes is a deep connection to nature,
Mm-hmm.
the power of energy, and the idea that our thoughts
Interesting.
and intentions have a real impact on the world around us.
So it's not just this passive kind of receiving information from the world.
Right, exactly.
It's that we can actually shape and mold the world
We'll have a role we play in it.
with our own thoughts and intention.
Exactly.
That's pretty powerful.
It is. Now, that might sound a little woo-woo to some people,
Okay.
but think about it. I mean,
Right.
modern science is starting to understand
That's true.
how our thoughts can
Very
actually influence our brain chemistry
Yeah,
and even our physical health.
that's right. There's so much research coming out now
I know, it's so cool.
about the mind-body connection
It is.
and how powerful that really is.
Yes, it's like science is catching up
Yeah.
to what shamans have known for centuries.
Right, like they were ahead of their time in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Okay, so fascinating stuff.
Yes.
But how does this all connect to internal dialogue?
Well, in shamanism, there's this concept called Matrika Shakti.
Matrika Shakti.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it essentially means the power of words.
Okay.
So it's this idea that words aren't just sounds that come out of our mouths.
Huh.
They're actually a form of energy
Wow.
that can influence both ourselves and the world around us.
So every time we say something,
Yep.
every time we think something,
Every
even
thought, every word.
it's putting out energy.
It's putting out energy into the universe.
And that energy is actually shaping the world around us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's powerful.
Yeah. It's almost like a kind of sorcery,
Sorcery.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you think about it.
I am officially intrigued.
I knew you would be.
So how do we actually use this word sorcery to our advantage?
Well, think of it this way. Every time you have a thought, you're essentially speaking to yourself,
Okay.
right?
So it's not just the words that we say out loud, but our thoughts themselves
Mm-hmm.
are like little spells
They are little spells, little incantations.
they're constantly casting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those words, whether positive or negative, have a real impact on your energy and your experience.
Wow.
So if you're constantly putting yourself down
Right.
or telling yourself you can't do something,
Mm-hmm.
you're essentially using Matrika Shakti against yourself.
Uh-huh.
It's like self-sabotage through sorcery.
Oof. That hits home.
It does for a lot of us.
I'm definitely guilty of some negative self-talk sometimes.
I think we all are to some extent.
So instead of saying I'm so bad at this,
Right.
I should be saying what?
Well, it's not necessarily about using over-the-top affirmations or
Uh-huh.
anything like that. It's
Right.
more about being mindful of the words you use and consciously choosing to frame things in a more positive and empowering light.
So it's about the energy behind the words
Yeah.
more than the specific words themselves.
Yes, and it's about choosing words that feel good to you,
Oh,
that resonate with you.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, for example, instead of saying, I'm so bad at this,
Mm-hmm.
I could say, I'm still learning, and I'm committed to getting better.
That's a great example.
Okay.
It's a subtle shift,
Yeah,
but it makes a big difference in how you feel
right.
and how you approach the situation.
It's like you're giving yourself permission to not be perfect,
Exactly.
to be a work in progress.
Yes, and to keep growing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Mhm.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's about changing the script in our heads.
Uh-huh.
So how do we actually start doing that?
Well, John actually outlines a really practical 3-step process
Okay.
for mastering our internal dialogue.
3 steps.
3 steps.
I love a good process. Lay it on me.
All right, step 1 is about becoming aware of those negative thought patterns.
Okay.
Start paying attention to the stories you're telling yourself.
So that awareness piece again.
Yeah, just noticing what's happening in your mind.
What are the recurring themes? Are they rooted in fear, self-doubt, or limiting beliefs?
Okay, awareness, got it. What's step 2?
Step 2 is about identifying whether those thoughts are based on what John calls fixed truth versus preferred truth.
Fixed truth versus preferred truth.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this.
Yeah, so fixed truth is basically an objective fact that you can't change. Like, I missed the deadline.
Okay.
That's a fact.
Nah, I can't argue with that.
You can't change that.
Right.
But preferred truth is more about the meaning you assign to that fact.
Okay.
And how you choose to move forward.
So the story we tell ourselves about the fact.
Exactly.
Okay.
So instead of dwelling on the missed deadline and beating yourself up, you could shift your focus to, okay, I learned a valuable lesson about time management.
I like that.
Next time, I'll do things differently.
So it's not about denying reality.
Right.
It's about choosing a more empowering perspective.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
So what's the final step? How do we actually shift the dialogue? That's where it gets really interesting and where a lot of people struggle.
Okay, I have a feeling this is where the work comes in.
It does, but John has this beautiful analogy that I find incredibly helpful.
Okay.
He talks about treating your inner critic like a sensitive child.
Oh.
Yeah, so imagine a child who is feeling insecure or afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't yell at them or berate them, right?
No, of course not.
You'd offer comfort, reassurance, and guidance.
Yeah.
It's the same with our inner critic.
Okay.
We need to be patient and compassionate with ourselves.
That's so hard, though.
I know it is.
It's so much easier to be kind to others
It really is.
than it is to be kind to ourselves.
It's like we have this inner drill sergeant
Yes.
that
Yeah.
just loves to point out all our flaws.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and that's where the principles of shamanism come in.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we have this incredible power within us, Trika Shakti,
Right.
to shape our reality. But it takes practice and conscious effort.
Yeah.
To harness that power and use it for good.
Okay.
It's about becoming aware of our thoughts,
Right.
choosing empowering narratives, and being gentle with ourselves along the way.
So it's a journey.
It is a journey.
It's not a destination.
Exactly.
This is making me think about John's example of the gym workout.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about how we can get so caught up in negative self-talk, even about something that's supposed to be good for us.
It's true. We do that all the time.
Like, yeah, I should have pushed harder, or I look terrible in these workout clothes.
Right. It's never enough.
Yeah. Would you ever say that to a friend?
Probably not.
But we're so quick to judge ourselves harshly.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And that's where I think the distinction between objective truth and subjective experience comes in.
Yes. Tell me more about that.
So did you go to the gym, yes or no? That's the objective truth.
Right.
But the meaning we assign to that fact, the guilt, the self-criticism,
Yeah.
that's where we have the power to shift things.
It's where our power lies.
So it's not about lying to ourselves or pretending that we ran a marathon when we only walked around the block.
Yo.
It's about choosing to focus on the positive aspects of the experience.
Yes.
Like, hey, at least I showed up today. Or I'm proud of myself for making time for my health.
Love it.
It's like celebrating those small wins.
Absolutely.
And that's what John means when he says call off the search for truth and meaning and bring it instead.
That's a powerful statement.
It is a provocative statement.
Yeah.
But it's really about taking ownership of our experience and choosing to create a reality that aligns with our values and aspirations.
It's about being the creators of our own experience.
This reminds me of something Abraham Hicks talks about,
Oh, yeah.
the idea that truth is overrated.
I love that.
They emphasize that what we focus on expands.
Yes.
So if we're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts,
Right.
we're just inviting more negativity into our
We're
experience.
feeding those thoughts.
Right, and it seems like John is saying something similar.
I think so, too.
But from a shamanic perspective.
Yeah. It's fascinating how these different traditions
Yeah.
often converge on similar truths.
It's like they're all pointing to the same underlying reality.
Exactly.
Like science is catching up to ancient wisdom.
I love that.
It's blowing my mind.
I know, right? It's so exciting.
So instead of getting bogged down in what we should be doing
Yeah.
or how we should be feeling, we can choose to focus on the thoughts and feelings that empower us.
We have that choice.
Okay, that's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
So how does this all tie back to shamanism specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't really talked about sweat lodges or spirit animals yet.
Well, shamanism is all about understanding the interconnectedness of everything.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we are not separate from nature,
Mm-hmm.
from each other,
Right.
or from the energy that flows through all things.
That web of life idea.
Exactly.
And our internal dialogue is a key part of that interconnected web.
It's the thread that connects us to everything else.
So by changing our internal dialogue, we're not just changing our own experience.
Right.
We're potentially influencing the energy of the world around us.
Precisely.
Wow, that's a lot to take in.
It is.
But it's also incredibly empowering.
It is.
It's like we're being given this incredible tool, our internal dialogue,
Yeah.
to shape our reality and create a more positive experience.
Absolutely.
For ourselves and for the world.
For everyone and everything. Yeah, it really is a humbling thought, isn't it?
It is.
To realize that we have this power within us to influence not just our own lives,
right,
but the world around us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's both exciting and a little daunting.
I agree.
But I'm curious, how does this idea of shifting our internal dialogue play out in a practical sense, like in our everyday lives?
Okay, so let's get into some examples here.
Yeah.
Because this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually apply it to, real life situations?
Well, John actually gives this really vivid example in his work.
Okay.
He talks about this scenario where you're going to a party.
Okay.
And you're trying on different dresses.
Oh, I can already relate to this.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at picking out party outfits.
Well, imagine you put on this dress.
Okay.
And you immediately start feeling self-conscious.
Yep, been there.
That inner critic chimes in and starts saying things like, look, I look awful in this, or everyone's going to be staring at my stomach.
Oh my gosh, stop reading my mind.
I think a lot of us have that voice.
It's so true. It's like the same script every time.
It is.
But what's fascinating is John suggests that those thoughts actually influence how others perceive you.
Exactly. Because perception is projection.
Oh, I like that.
When you're feeling insecure and self-critical, that energy radiates outwards, and people pick up on it subconsciously.
So it's not just my imagination.
Right.
It's like I'm actually putting out this vibe of insecurity.
Yeah, it's like you're projecting your own insecurities onto them.
So they're not even necessarily judging me.
Right. They might be, but you're also influencing that perception.
It's like I'm creating that reality in a way.
You are. And on the flip side, if you put on a dress that makes you feel confident and radiant, that energy is also going to project outwards.
Interesting.
People are going to see you differently because you're seeing yourself differently.
It's like our internal dialogue is creating a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Impacting not just our own experience, but also how others interact with us.
It all starts with us.
That's incredible.
And it ties back to the shamanic principle of interconnectedness.
Right.
Everything is energy, and we're constantly exchanging energy with the people and the environment around us.
That energetic dance.
It is.
That we're all a part of.
And our thoughts and emotions are a part of that energetic exchange.
This makes me think about how sometimes I walk into a room and I can just feel the tension.
Oh, yeah.
Or I meet someone new and I instantly feel at ease. It's like we're picking up on those subtle energetic cues.
Absolutely. And that's why shamanism emphasizes the importance of cultivating a positive internal state.
Okay.
Because that positive energy can have a transformative effect, not just on ourselves, but on the world around us.
I feel like we have a responsibility to cultivate that positive energy.
In a way, yes.
Okay, so we've talked about awareness, identifying our fixed versus preferred truths.
Right.
And being gentle with our inner critic. What are some other practical tips for shifting our internal dialogue?
Well, one powerful technique is to simply notice when those negative thoughts pop up. And then consciously choose a more empowering thought to replace it.
So catch it and redirect it.
Exactly. It's like training a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets.
So instead of dwelling on, I'm so stressed, I could shift to, I'm capable of handling this.
Perfect. Or instead of, I always mess things up. You could try, I'm learning and growing from my experiences.
It's about reframing those negative thoughts into something more constructive.
Yeah, turn those shoulds into coulds.
That makes sense. And I imagine it takes time and practice to really master this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving some kind of perfect positive mindset. It's about progress, not perfection. Remember the analogy of the sensitive child. Be patient and compassionate with yourself.
Give yourself grace.
Exactly.
As you navigate this process.
It's a journey.
And what about those times when external factors are really getting us down? Like a stressful job or a difficult relationship? Can shifting our internal dialogue really make a difference in those situations?
It's not about pretending that those challenges don't exist,
Right.
but rather about equipping ourselves with the tools to navigate them with more resilience and grace.
So it's about how we respond to those challenges.
Exactly. And remember, those external factors can only affect us if we give them power.
And our internal dialogue determines how much power we give them.
That's right. It's our choice.
So, if I'm constantly telling myself, this job is killing me, or this relationship is hopeless, I'm giving those external factors more power over my well-being.
You're essentially feeding those negative narratives and allowing them to dictate your experience.
So it's like I'm becoming a victim of my own thoughts.
In a way, yeah.
Oh, but what if I shifted to, I'm doing my best in a challenging situation, or I'm committed to finding solutions in this relationship?
That's a much more empowering perspective.
It's like taking back control of the narrative.
Exactly.
Choosing to focus on the aspects that we can influence rather than feeling helpless.
Right. It's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we respond to circumstances, even when things feel really tough.
We always have that choice.
We do.
This reminds me of something I read about the power of gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the midst of difficult times, if we can find things to be grateful for, it can shift our whole perspective.
That's a great point. Gratitude is an incredibly powerful tool for shifting our internal dialogue.
And it's something we can practice every day.
Every single day.
It helps us focus on the positive aspects of our lives.
Yes.
Even when things are challenging.
Even when things are really tough.
It's like a muscle that gets stronger the more we use it.
It does. The more we practice gratitude, the more we train our minds to look for the good, even in the midst of difficulty.
Okay, so we've talked about awareness, shifting negative thoughts to more empowering ones.
Right.
Being gentle with ourselves. And practicing gratitude. Any other tips for mastering our internal dialogue?
Well, this might sound a bit counterintuitive.
Okay.
But sometimes the best way to deal with those negative thoughts is to simply acknowledge them without judgment.
So you're saying we shouldn't try to push them away.
Right.
Or pretend they don't exist.
Sometimes resistance actually gives those thoughts more power. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Okay.
The more you push it down, the harder it pops back up.
So you're saying we should let those thoughts float to the surface?
Yes.
Acknowledge them?
Yeah.
And then let them drift away?
Exactly. It's a bit like meditation. You notice the thought, you observe it without judgment,
right,
and then you gently redirect your attention
back to the present moment.
To the breath, to the body, to the senses.
That's a really interesting approach. It's like we're taking away the power of those negative thoughts by simply refusing to engage with them.
Precisely. And when we stop giving them energy, they often lose their grip on us.
Okay. This all makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it's a lot to process.
It is.
It's like we're being asked to completely rewire our brains.
It is a journey.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy.
Right.
But it's a journey worth taking because the rewards are immense.
I'm curious, for you personally, has exploring these shamanic principles changed the way you approach your own internal dialogue?
Absolutely. It's made me much more aware of the stories I'm telling myself and the power those stories have to shape my reality.
And have you noticed any real-world changes as a result of shifting your internal dialogue?
Oh, definitely. I've noticed that I'm more resilient in the face of challenges.
That's great.
I'm more confident in my interactions with others, and I generally feel more at peace and connected to the world around me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a profound shift.
It's like you've tapped into a whole new level of awareness and empowerment.
And it's a journey that anyone can embark on.
That's encouraging.
It all starts with that first step of becoming aware of our internal dialogue and then making a conscious choice to shift it to something more positive and life-affirming.
So instead of being at the mercy of our thoughts and emotions,
yeah,
we can become the masters of our own minds.
Exactly. And that's where true freedom lies.
So much good stuff here.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up,
okay,
let's recap some of these key takeaways from our deep dive into the power of internal dialogue.
All right, so first and foremost, we explored this concept of Matrika Shakti, this idea from shamanism that words hold a special kind of energy and power.
It's like our words are a form of sorcery.
They are.
Capable of shaping not just our thoughts, but our actual reality.
I love that.
Right.
It's so true.
And we saw how this power can be used for good and bad. Depending on, the direction of our internal dialogue.
Exactly.
So negative self-talk
Yeah.
is essentially Matrika Shakti turned inwards.
It is.
Right? Creating self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and even impacting our physical well-being.
It can.
But the good news is,
yes,
we're not stuck with those negative patterns.
We have the power to shift.
We have the power to change
our
internal dialogue to something more empowering.
Absolutely.
And we talked about John's 3-step process for mastering this shift.
Right.
Starting with awareness, then identifying our fixed versus preferred truths, and finally actively shifting the dialogue.
And remember that key analogy of treating our inner critic like a sensitive child.
Right.
We need to be gentle with ourselves as we navigate this process.
We do. It's so important.
Yeah.
The party dress example really brought this to life.
Oh, yeah.
It showed how our internal state, our thoughts and feelings, can actually influence how others perceive us.
It's wild, isn't it?
It really is.
It's like we're walking around with these invisible force fields that are projecting our inner world out into the world.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that perception is projection.
Exactly.
We're constantly radiating energy outward.
We are.
And that energy is shaped by our internal dialogue.
So it all comes back to us.
Yeah.
It really does.
So ultimately, it all comes down to taking responsibility for the narratives we choose to embrace.
That's the key.
Are we going to feed the negativity or cultivate positivity and empowerment?
That's the question.
The choice is ours.
It is.
This has been such a mind-expanding conversation.
It has.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective
Yeah.
on the power of my own thoughts.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners feel the same way.
I hope so too.
I have one final question for you before we sign off.
Okay.
What's one small step our listeners can take today to start applying these principles in their own lives?
I would say start with simply noticing your internal dialogue.
Just that awareness piece.
Yeah, just pay attention to those recurring thoughts and beliefs.
Those tapes that are playing in our heads.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the stories you're telling yourself, about your life, about the world?
Yeah. And then once you're aware of those stories, start asking yourself, are these stories serving me or limiting me?
Are they helpful or hurtful?
Exactly.
And if they're limiting you, what's one small shift you can make today to start rewriting that narrative?
It could be a tiny shift.
Maybe it's replacing a negative thought with a more positive one, or practicing gratitude for a few minutes each day.
Or just taking a few deep breaths when you notice that you're spiraling.
Yeah.
Even the smallest shift can have a ripple effect.
It's about those small, consistent actions over time.
Absolutely.
Creating a more positive and fulfilling experience of life.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
This deep dive has been incredible.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And remember, you have the power to create the reality you desire.
Don't forget that.
It all starts with the words you choose.
Yes.
That's a great note to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of internal dialogue.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
And until next time, keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
Absolutely.
And keep creating the reality you desire.
Beautiful.